Welcome back, everyone. So, if you joined us for part one of this conversation, you will have heard us talking about telling the truth. And when we're talking about telling the truth, like Jill mentioned last time, we're not talking about those malicious lies. We're talking more about those things that we kind of avoid or we sugarcoat or we consent to, but we didn't really want to because we're afraid we're going to hurt someone's feelings or we're going to come across as being mean. Um, so we gave some examples in part one about some times as a child and a teenager, and now even as adults, how over the years we've learned to not be mean. But in doing so, we don't always tell people the truth, and it gets us into situations we'd rather not be in. So now, today, I've got Jill McPherson back with me again. And Jill is a teacher. She works with children and adults around wellness strategies. Jill's going to continue that conversation with us today to talk about, well, what do we do then? How do we tell the truth in a way that, how do we overcome, I guess, really, is that feeling of not telling the truth because we don't want to be mean and we don't want to hurt someone's feelings.
Right, great, yeah, thanks. I think really where it starts is understanding, thanks to someone like Marshall Rosenberg, who wrote Nonviolent Communication. I really recommend this book. He explains that we do things to meet a need, and when it comes to this category of not telling our truth, if we're not telling our truth, there's still because there's an unmet need there that we're trying to get met. And in this context, what we're talking about, the need would likely be something like connection, companionship, love, community, that kind of thing, because that's often what we're worried about jeopardizing when someone's asking us for truth and we're not wanting to tell them for fear they won't receive it well. So that's where a lot of research has come from, and from my own experience. But also, so it really begins with, once we recognize how this pattern started, why we're sort of in the situation, now from that awareness, now we can work at reframing it. So instead of seeing this as, well, I can't tell the truth because it's not mean, that's just a belief that for some people might be a truth, but not the truth, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to let that go, that I'm bought into the story of telling my truth, that I could hurt someone, and that's not nice. It's not, it's a mean thing to do. And I'm going to look at this differently so it's healthy for everyone involved. And so when we go through all of what I'm about to share, you'll realize that when you tell your truth, even if it's not received well, it still is what's best for all. So I'll come back to that, but hang on to that. So the first thing after you've reframed and you've been open to okay, I want to see this differently. If you can say something first to whoever's asking the question. So let's go back to your example that a friend has asked you into this business venture. Please sign up with me or sign up under me in this marketing scheme thing, and we'll both benefit and you'll love the product because it's so great, and they tell you all the reasons why. And it still doesn't feel right for you, right? So then your truth is, you're like, this isn't really what I want to do. But now you're into but I can tell my truth because this isn't about being mean. This is about being truthful. And so the first step you want to do is make sure you say something to the person you're speaking to that indicates that they have been heard. So for instance, you can say something to them like, I hear this is really important to you. You see it as a great opportunity for financial gain. You see it as it's going to meet your need for connection because you've joined a community of like-minded people. I can really see you're passionate about the product and you believe in the product, and just saying all these things so that the person hearing it really feels heard. Because my experience is in any dialogue, any conversation, if you want to be heard, you need to say something to indicate that you have listened. Right? Because the other person speaking can't hear you until they feel heard.
Yeah.
Right? So you've set that platform of I hear you. And so now their ears are open, they're ready to hear you because they've been heard. Right? And so that's the next step. And then you can thank them for, thank you for thinking of me, to wanting to join in on this exciting business adventure. And the other little tip I add here is try really hard never to use but. So we tend to say something like, thanks for thinking of me. I really want to do, this is really nice. I see it's a great product, but as soon as you say but, the person listening, now everything you've said prior to but is negated. Okay?
Yeah.
So it's like, I really like your outfit, but, and then they don't hear that I really like your outfit. It's gone because now they hear but, and they're ready for the what you don't, right? So I always say, thank you very much for thinking of me. It's really exciting. And I feel it's not right for me at this time. And whatever thing it is. Because because and means that both what's before and after the and can still be true. Okay, so yes, I really appreciate you inviting me, and it's not going to work for me right now. Yeah. And you can explain the reasons, why you don't. Make sure it's not sounding like in a defensive way, but just in a, my need for community is already met in this situation. I feel very financially, I'm doing well with my job, and so that needs being met. And I've got my book club, and I've got and you can sort of explain that, where I really feel my needs are already being met, and I don't need to add something more to my plate. And I really appreciate you asking me.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then they're more likely to hear. Now, still, it's okay then that if they're upset, this is when you have to really work at not owning it. So I always say that we're responsible for how we deliver a message, but we're never responsible for how someone receives it. And I think that's becoming more commonly known in our culture. Still hard to do, but we do understand that we couldn't possibly be responsible for how somebody interprets what we say, right? Yeah. So if they are upset, it's not about trying to fix anything. It's about accepting that, can you hold space for their upset? Can you allow them just to simply be disappointed, right? And now one of two things is going to happen. You're going to give them space to be disappointed, and you can even acknowledge that. I see that you seem really disappointed. I can see that. And no apologies about it, just acknowledging it. And then allowing them to be that way. And then in time, they'll kind of come around and go, oh yeah, like I can see like this wasn't right for Lori after all. And no problem. There's other people I can ask, and things will carry on, and it'll be lovely. And you'll really have worked to strengthen your relationship and your friendship by getting through that. Yeah. The other thing that could possibly happen is the person stays mad at you. And I always say, if you tell somebody your truth and they're mad at you and they decide to stay mad at you, you've been spared, because now you've just kind of cleaned out the deadwood of the relationships in your life, right? Because you don't want to stay in a relationship that is dependent upon, I need you to do what I want you to do so I can be happy.
Yes.
That's codependency, right? That's not a healthy relationship.
Yeah,
right?
There's a difference between support and dependency.
Right, right. So now you've just figured out, oh, I thought this person was a genuine, friend that was healthy for me. They could still be a nice person, but it's now you're seeing they're not a match for you, because you want a friendship where you can do what you need to do, and I'll support you, and I'll do what I need to do, and you'll support me, and there's no sort of strings attached.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And so by telling your truth, so this comes back to what I said right at the beginning, is trust me, because when you tell your truth, you could say, well, Jill, I took your advice and I told the truth, and now she's mad at me and she won't speak to me. And you might think something terrible happened, but I would invite the person to say, actually, this is a wonderful thing that's happened, because good to know. Now you know that this is really what's happening in your relationship, and it may be a relationship you don't want to try to hold on to anymore. So you wish them well on their path, and then you carry on and attract people who will support you in doing different things and allow you to tell your truth, and at the end of the day, you're still friends.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm imagining similar conversations with spouses, for example, where you've told them something that may have been difficult for them to hear, and that upset and anger might carry on for a period of time. And although that may not necessarily be a relationship where you go, okay, I guess this isn't going to work, I mean, it may at least give you more information about your relationship, and that this is an area that you guys need to work on, is how to communicate with each other in a way that you can both be heard, but you're both speaking truthfully. And so it gives you that kind of information about your relationships, and you can make that decision. Is this particular relationship one then that I'm willing to invest in to help us get through this difficult conversation? Or is it one that's a little more like an acquaintance, or maybe a friend that not a really long-term close friend, that you might make that decision where I don't feel it's worth the investment now, and now I know. Yeah.
Right. Good point. Yeah, because it's not about, immediately ending a relationship over one episode.
Yeah. But it gives you information about your relationship with that person.
Yeah, it's that good to know, good feedback, and then you can decide if you want to keep pursuing this or not. And hopefully in a committed relationship, like with a spouse, a romantic partner, that you're willing to go, okay, so this is a challenge we have, and we can work through this. The more we work on our communication skills, hearing each other's truth and not owning it, not taking it personally, and allowing each other to feel what we're feeling. I mean, back to the whole, kindergarten scenario, a lot of times, a lot of our struggles is also because we weren't allowed to feel what we were feeling, so, it's okay for a child to be disappointed. So for instance, if a child comes up to me when I'm teaching at school and says such and such won't play with me, or he said he didn't like me, or she didn't like me, and they're really upset about it, I'm like, just, oh, so you appear sad about this. Let them feel sad.
Yeah.
We need to feel these feelings. We need to feel disappointment, and how do you handle it? Like, well, he doesn't want to play with me. And I'm like, okay, that's it. That's important information. I'm wondering what you'll do with that information. Instead of like trying to fix anything, it's just like, oh, so do you want to choose to play with somebody else? Do you want to choose to play alone? Or do you want to really think about, I wonder why they don't want to play with me? This might be important feedback, and just help them to like take this information as a gift rather than something to be insulted by. Right. Yeah. So that's in another category, because that's talking about now about how you receive someone else's truth.
So with that in mind, we'll wrap up this part of the discussion, and everyone can join us for then part 3 of this, where we talked about why it's difficult to tell the truth. Now we've talked about how to tell the truth. But the third part, possibly the hardest part, I don't know, is how to receive that when someone is telling you their truth.
Great.
So,
yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll be back
for part 3. Okay. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks, Lori. Okay, bye.
Bye.